The show goes on. Welcome back to the official show on the Fish on First podcast channel, presented by NPT College Consulting. Eli Sussman with you, Isaac Azout, Kevin Barral, Nate Karzmer. We're looking ahead already to 2025 Marlins baseball by doing what I'm calling the opening day roster locks draft. I'm going to explain what that is. We're going to go head to head. Let's try to give you some insight in terms of which guys left on this current Marlins team, which guys deeper into the system, and which guys elsewhere, not even in the organization, could find their way a part of the Marlins next year in a draft format right here as we wind down this season. I'm in this mood. I was probably inspired by this idea just yesterday, seeing our guy Sandy Alcantara facing live batters for the first time. I imagine that he is going to be off the board at some point during this draft as we look ahead to 2025. First, I did want to do a refresher on what happens entering the 2024 Marlins season right here. Boy. This is the a close look at the opening day roster that the Marlins had entering this doomed season, 95 losses and counting. First reaction, Kevin, to seeing these names right here. What's the name that sticks out in terms of one that you didn't remember being a part of the group, or somebody that you'd wish wasn't a part of this team, given the way that their season went from that point forward?
Yeah, I mean, when you kind of look, it was definitely surprising. Burch Smith was on there to begin the year. I know he was acquired I think it was the day before opening day. You know, you kind of thought everything was ready to go, and all of a sudden you see a couple more moves to shake up the roster. John Birdie was traded, and they acquired Burch Smith. So yeah, that was one of the names. And you know, kind of looking at you kind of forget that Jonah Bride made this roster just given the trade of the of that trade, and then. You know, like just looking at the bullpen a little bit more, you know, like Soriano, like just how much he struggled this year, like to see what happened to him after a really good 2023 season. The quality of the slider just isn't what it was last season. Really, just a lot of struggles. So, yeah, I mean, there were some names here that you know you kind of had high expectations for that unfortunately just didn't live up to. Like you know, for example, AJ Puck, when we thought what we saw during spring training was as good as it gets, and unfortunately, just didn't work out for him as a starter. Thankfully, now he's been killing it in the bullpen, and yeah, I mean that kind of just goes for a couple other guys on the roster. But you know, I'll let you guys kind of talk a little bit more about that.
I think at this point, a little over half of these players are even in the Marlins organization right now, and that's if you include Sixto Sanchez. That's if you include Nick Gordon, guys that are all intents and purposes on their way out right here. Yeah, what a collection of guys that they had heading into this year. No surprise this group did not win a game until like a week and a half into the season moving forward. And now a lot of them are elsewhere. So for this group, what we're going to do is looking ahead to next year. It's a 26-man group. We're going to have a 6-round draft, all things considered, 5 conventional rounds, where we just pick who we think are the most likely candidates to be part of that 2025 opening day roster next March as they open up against the Pirates. And then we're going to have a 6th bonus rounds where we have to choose somebody who's not in the Marlins organization right now. Overall, we're going to select 24 different players. So there is a universe where all 24 of those guys are actually on the team. That universe is not one that I expect us to arrive at when all things come together. This is we've done similar formats when we did like the call-up contest entering this year. It was that same sort of thing where maybe there's a path to getting it all right, and then you turn out that your success rate is less than 50%. We don't know what the hell Peter Bendix is going to do this offseason. There are many different directions that he could go in terms of which of these players are. There's so many trade candidates potentially, aside from the ones that we don't know whether they're going to even stick on the 40-man roster, much less the active roster. A lot of wrinkles in this. First off, we want to determine the draft order that we're going into. And I have a trivia question for you guys to set that draft order. Whoever gets closest is going to draft first, and then whoever is furthest away will draft last. We're going to do a snake draft here. It is opening day roster related. The question is, how many different center fielders the Marlins have had start on opening day in their history? 32 seasons in Marlins history, 32 opening days. How many different starting center fielders have they had on opening day? I do not have the answer. I'm going to throw up the screenshot and we're going to count together once we put in our guesses right here. But how many in those 32 years, how many different center fielders have they used on opening day? Whoever gets closest gets it right. If it's like a tie and each of us are the same distance off, it's whoever is underneath that total. So you want to err on the side of going under if possible. Try to get as close as you can. We'll start with Isaac. What is your guess? Total number of different opening day center fielders have used in the
There wasn't a ton of continuity at that. I'm gonna go with 19.
Okay. So none of us can select 19. We either got to go over or under that one. Nate, your turn. Any number except for 19 that you think for the total number of
Maybe way
fielders.
too much, bro. Shit.
Well, funny you say that, Isaac. I'm gonna roll with 20. I just thinking about the past couple seasons. I think Jonathan VR got the start in center in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
You just got 2021. I'm already forgetting. So, yeah, I think like Isaac said, not a lot of continuity ever throughout the 3-tier history. So I think 20 might be a little high, but let's roll the dice. Why not?
Now, Kevin, your guess?
I think there was some sort of continuity towards the start of the franchise. So I'm going to go a little lower than both of you. I'm going to go with 16. But recently, it definitely has been very tough. And probably the higher end of the inconsistency of that position is happening now.
Okay. Well, I feel great about my guess then. I'll go with 15 and hope that it's that number or lower. We're going to find out together right here. This screenshot I took. Most recently, Jazz Chisholm Jr. So that was one. We do not think he's going to be in the running for that again, as he is now on the New York Yankees. There's Jazz. That's one. Jesús Sánchez, 2022. Remember that experiment? That's 2. Starling Marte, 3. Jonathan VR, 4. Lewis Brinson, 5. Christian Yelich, 6. Marcelo Ozuna, 7. Chris Coughlin, 8. Bonifacio, 9. That's another Coughlin year. So Cameron Maybin is 10. Oh my goodness. Cody Ross, 11. Alejandro Deaza, 12. 13. Reed was 13. Pierre was 14. 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. It was 20. Wow. So quite an upset there. In case you were worried that I was cheating because I put this screenshot ahead of time, apparently not, because I was the furthest away. I will draft last. Nate first, Isaac second, Kevin third, Eli fourth in this draft order. We're calling it Opening Day Roster Locks, and it's an ironic title because our success rate, I imagine, is not going to be anything close to a lock, given all the directions this team could go. Players most likely to be on the opening day active roster next year. So part of the major league team, available to play, part of that initial 26-man group. Once again, the final round will be a bonus round where we have to take a flyer on somebody who's not in the organization. Your first overall pick, Nate, for next year's opening day roster is?
This might be a surprise to some, but he's currently the longest tenure member on the team. I'm going with the Sanchez himself, Jesús Sánchez. I believe that's as close to a lock as you can get. Guy's been on the team since 2020. He's still young, still has good amount of control, and there's still a lot to see for him. Honestly, he has a lot of potential. Me and Isaac agree on this. We've been going back and forth the entire year. A lot of untapped potential with this guy. He's going to start in right field opening day, and I think that's a pretty safe number one, honestly.
Your turn, Isaac, for the second overall pick.
I was not expecting that for first overall.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. But I do think he was on my board of tier 1 guys for this draft. For me, I'm in between two. I'm going to go with Connor Norby. He will be on the active roster. He will be he is what he's done in his short Marlins career at the big league level has been nothing short of amazing. And they're going to give him every chance in the world to be a major leaguer next year, the whole year. So he will be on the major league team on opening day.
Okay. Kevin, you're up.
All righty. I'm going to go with Xavier Edwards. I mean, if it's not shortstop, it's going to be second base. And he has lit it up since getting up here late into the year. So definitely, I think the right guy to go with. And I mean, he could be really, really good for this Marlins team, especially in the leadoff spot. He should be up there every single day.
All right. I will take. I need to get the first one right here. Both of you did snipe the ones that were on top of my board, but I still feel pretty good. I'll go with a pitcher here. The first pitcher, not Sandy Alcantara, but Jesús Luzardo to me.
Yeah.
All heavily involved in trade rumors this past season. And as we found out, he's just a really disappointing year overall in terms of production and health. They've taken it as cautious as possible with his recovery from a back injury, sidelined for the entire second half of the season, at a situation where his trade value is extremely low at the moment. It makes all the sense in the world for him to come back. And they've taken every possible precaution to have him ready for next year. Even though Sandy is the easy answer, Sandy's coming back from an elbow injury. As good as he looks right now, we're talking another 6 months away from him having to dial things down and then ramp things back up. It's just a little bit unpredictable for me to take Sandy this high. I think of all the pitchers, of a guy that is definitely going to be in their opening day roster if he's on the team, and one that I don't think is going to be traded at this particular time before opening day, just given how his 2024 campaign went. I think he's an extremely safe pick right here. The hometown kid, Luzardo, at least for the start of the season. We'll see where things are at the trade deadline and certainly next offseason. For 2024 opening day, makes the roster, makes the rotation. This being a snake draft, I also have the next pick right here, and it's a similar vein, I guess you could say, a potential trade candidate, but one that I don't think would make a ton of sense to move right now in Jake Berger. 26 home runs this year. He's their team leader in a lot of run production categories. It's been inconsistent up and down. And as I've covered on the site, it's a little unclear as to whether he's going to be arbitration eligible or not, whether that first pay bump is going to come this offseason or the next one. They do have other internal options at first base and DH moving forward. And now with Norby at third base, it's just because of how up and down his season was and just because of the lack of experience those other alternatives have. I don't think he's an off-season trade candidate. I think that's somebody they reevaluate next trade deadline, maybe in 2026. But for now, he's one of the leaders in the clubhouse. His production is there where he certainly has a spot waiting for him if he's on the team. I think Luzardo and Berger are both still with this team and featured players heading into opening day next year.
I agree. I would have chosen Berger over Luzardo. But in your defense, Luzardo, I was speaking with Luzardo the other day, and he said he's good to go right now. So he does seem extremely healthy. And the only question would be is if he's on the team. But I think health-wise, he is ready to go.
Yeah. So Sandy still on the board. Is he your pick right here, Kevin?
No, unfortunately not. I am going to go with the pitcher, though. I'm going to go with Ryan Weathers. I had a good feeling Isaac was going to take him with the next pick. I mean, look, the injury definitely held him out for a good amount of the year as well. Just don't see a world where they really trade him in the offseason. I don't think he's arbitration eligible yet. So he still has a little bit of time before that. And, I mean, if they do make the trades that we think they're going to make at the deadline, this guy is probably going to be towards the top of the rotation pretty soon. And he showed a lot of good things, in spring training during the year with the secondary stuff, really taking it to the next level there. The fastball, really commanding it well, hitting 99 during spring training. We saw high 90s. So I'm really excited to see what Weathers does. If he's not going to be your number 2 starter, he'll be your number 3 in the rotation. Obviously, with Sandy and potentially Luzardo there, as those top 2 guys. But yeah, I mean, Weathers is definitely a lock.
Your second round pick, Isaac.
I'm going to be gambling a little bit here just because of, I'm not even going to gamble a little bit. I'm going to go with Declan Cronin.
Good pick.
He will be in Miami's bullpen, no doubt about it. He's not arbitration eligible until 2027. And the way he pitched this year, just now gave up his first home run of the season. He's one of Bendix's guys, and Miami's going to need a lot of help in that bullpen, and he's going to be a pivotal part of that. So, health permitting, he will be on the opening day roster.
If you say so.
What, do you think he's going to get traded?
I just wouldn't take a reliever that high, especially on this team.
I would.
We'll see. He was certainly, he was on my board. He's relatively high up, but we'll see. As we get back to Nate finally for his second round pick, this is the turn for him where he gets back-to-back picks. Wherever you want to go with this, Nate.
I wasn't really expecting him to fall to me, but I believe in him. I think he's going to make the recovery. He's going to be the workhorse. I'm taking Sandy. I think he's going to be on the mound opening day against Paul Skeens. It's going to be cinema in Lone Depot Park. It's going to be probably one of the most memorable opening days in a long time. Sandy's first time back on the mound, of course. So I'm going to go with Sandy. Then back-to-back, I'm going to go with another starter. I'm going to go with Braxton Garrett. I think Braxton's also going to be in that rotation. So I'm feeling pretty confident now with those two guys. I like those two for sure.
Okay. We move to the 10th overall pick, Isaac's third selection. He already has Norby and Cronin. Who's up next?
On the opening day roster. Shit.
Now it's
We're
tough
gonna-
to get a position player.
Yeah, because
Well, at least on the active roster now. I mean, if you go to the minors, it's a little easier. But yeah.
right on the opening day, I don't think anyone I'm gonna go with Jonah Bride. I think he will be on the major league team as well.
I was thinking about getting him.
I'm probably choosing him a little bit too high here, but I do think he's shown enough, and this team is going to be really depleted. Like, they're going to need every single one of him. If he's not starting, if he's not in the starting lineup, he will be on the bench, I would assume. So I think they give him a shot.
Yeah, he has been a clear bright spot during the second half of the season. Hitting machine, very consistent. So Kevin, your third pick.
I'm going to pull an Isaac here and take a reliever, and I'm going to go with Calvin Faucher, who I think will be the team's closer next season. He took that towards the start of the second half of the season after the trade deadline, and I think he'll do it come 2025 opening day.
That's who I was going to pick, but with the shoulder, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what that's the only thing that kept me from choosing him over Cronin.
That's fair. He threw yesterday.
He looked fine, but still, just in case.
Do you have a high school student going through the college application process? At MPT College Consulting, they strive to make things as stress-free for the family as possible. This includes preparation for standardized testing, guidance through high school, assistance with essays and application, and choosing the right college. Their work is always geared toward the specific needs of the individual client. Just visit them today at mptcollegeconsulting.com to learn more about their services and schedule a free consultation. Man. All right, so I think my first pick I feel pretty good about. Maybe not. I thought I felt pretty good about him. I'll take Otto Lopez here.
Damn it!
It's been inconsistent from him offensively this year, but more good than bad relative to expectations. Arguably the best defensive player on this entire team. The only reason I hesitate is because he's playing great defense at second base, and they have a bunch of second basemen. Connor Norby can play second base. Xavier Edwards probably should play second base. Javier Sanoja can play second base. So there is a scenario where, depending on how the roster battles go in spring training, that they decide to send him to AAA. He's going to be part of this organization for sure. He's been a good find for a former waiver claim. It's just complicated because his best position is the position where they have so many of these other alternatives as well that they have a lot invested in. Ultimately, I think he finds a spot there. And now, split between two guys. I think I'm going to deviate from the board that I had originally because I think I can get these guys a little bit later. I'll go with a reliever here. And this is a top reliever on my board, Andrew Nardi.
Yeah.
Oh.
Because he was incredible last year. Then this year, a little bad luck, a little regression as well, and now a small injury that has him shut down. It's an elbow muscle injury, not a UCL thing, nothing that we would think would require surgical intervention or a long-term issue. But his season ended early this year, kind of in the same category as Luzardo, where extremely talented, and at the same time in a position where it just doesn't make any sense at all to trade him now. So I think he's going to be part of this group. Still pre-arbitration eligible, and he could be really effective next year. What other lefties are going to be in this bullpen aside from Andrew Nardi? So that's another element that I feel really good about Nardi being part of this group.
Going back to Otto, do you think there's a possibility he could play shortstop? Like a very slim possibility he's the opening day shortstop?
Andrew Nardi?
No, not Andrew. I mean Otto Lopez.
There is, for sure. Yes, I've been contemplating this. I guess I'm not going to go in this direction anyway, so I could go through that thought exercise of him at short. And there's a lot of possibilities. We already had Norby off the board. So I've even been thinking about the idea that Norby could wind up, if they're comfortable using him in the corner outfield spots because his third base defense hasn't looked great and they want to do something. There's a lot of possibilities with defensive moving things around right here. None that I'm super satisfied with. but that could be a path to Otto, even though second base has been his primary home so far. That shortstop is still such a big question. I think that's something that's something that they look at in spring training. So fourth round here, I started off with Nardi right there, back to Kevin, who already has Xavier Edwards, Ryan Weathers, Calvin Faucher. Your next pick, Kevin.
I'm going to take Dane Myers here. I think he will be the starting center fielder for this team unless Victor Mesa Jr. really makes a good case. But, I mean, yeah, I know Isaac. Yeah, you can laugh all you want, bro, whatever. But, yeah, I'm going with Dane. He showed a lot of good things this season before his injury. There's a little bit on a cold stretch before that he kicked the door in Cincinnati. But he should be back soon, and I mean defensively he is pretty good out there, and he should help the Marlins at least for the next couple of years at center field until they find a for sure answer.
Okay. We're down to Isaac right here in his fourth round pick.
Yeah, well, you know what? My pick, I believe, is going to be competing with yours, Kevin, for that fourth outfield spot. Kyle Stowers is going to make the Marlins opening day roster. He can play center field. They're putting him out there at the big league level now. He has shown a modicum of success. He had a nice 2-for-5 day yesterday with a triple and a double and a couple of ribbies. And I think that on a bad team, he's a lock to make the ball club. I like him. Great value at fourth pick.
Okay.
I think there's room for both Stowers and Dane Myers. I think there's plenty of room for everyone.
I mean, ideally, you would be looking at some sort of outfield with Stowers, Myers, and Sanchi.
Right.
In the perfect world.
Yeah, we should note that Stowers, for the most part, it's been bad
Terrible.
for him with this team so far. He had that one good road trip. That was that one good West Coast road trip. And aside from that, the offensive success in particular has been far and few in between. As we go back to Nate here, once again, back-to-back picks for Nate, finishing off the fourth round and going into the fifth round. Go ahead.
All right. Well, just because of the limbo that Augustino Ramirez is behind the plate, I'm going to go with Nick Fortes. I think he's at least being one of the two catchers on the opening day roster. I'm not behind his performance at all, but I think you need someone back there that can actually receive and block the baseball. So I'm going to go with Nick Fortes. And for the second pick, my final pick before the wild card round, this one's a little tougher. I'm going to go with Jesús Tinoco. I think he's going to be in 2025's bullpen. I'm not sure about Matt Meyer. He's a guy that you think should be on the roster, but who knows with Matt Meyer at this point, man. So I think Tinoco has been off the waivers, been really good for Miami. I think he's going to lock up a high leverage role for 2025.
I think that's a great pick because for Tinoco, one reason why he's available in the first place is he's out of minor league options. He can't send him down. He's either on this roster or an injury or something weird happens in spring training that makes him reconsider right there. Of all these guys, he's one of the few that is out of options entirely. Him, as well as Jesus Sanchez, Sandy, of course. He's either on the roster or on the IL or elsewhere. So I can see that. So we get to Isaac right here, fifth round pick.
With my last organizational selection, I'm going to hedge my bets a little bit here. There's not room for all of these guys. Javier Sanoja, I think he's got a shot to make his first opening day roster. I don't expect him to be in the lineup, but he can literally play anywhere. And, God forbid there's an injury, he is the next guy up. He's looked major league ready in his very brief sample, but I think we're all of us at Fish on First are a big fan of this young player. And I think it would be pretty cool to see him on the opening day roster. And that's something that Miami might do.
Kevin, your fifth round pick.
All righty. I'm going to go with a minor leaguer, and I'm going to go with Deyvison de los Santos, who I think will be the starting first baseman for the Marlins on opening day. I mean, the guy has shown it all. He's the minor league home run king at the moment. Obviously, that doesn't do too much for your status, but definitely is impressive to see what he's done, especially since arriving at Jacksonville. The K rate, I believe, has gone a little bit down this season, just at every stop he's been at. But, I mean, they don't really have a clear first baseman, and, you could even do some sort of combo there where you DH Berger, you could DH De Los Santos on certain days. I mean, there is a world where he makes it. They traded for this guy for a reason, to play as soon as they can, and I think he is ready to go at the major league level.
He's on the verge of being minor league baseball's home run king here in 2024 as a 21-year-old. He would be the youngest player on this roster if he makes it. I have to take a great value pick right here with my final pick. I just can't believe he fell this far, even if there is some risk of losing him. Edward Cabrera.
No, I knew it. No, they're gonna trade. No, I don't think so.
Come on. He's been is off and on in trade rumors throughout. It seems like most of his major league career at this point. At this moment, he's been one of the best pitching stories of the second half of their season, especially over the previous 6-7 starts. It's looked really good. He's out of options, so if he's on this team and he's not hurt, then he's on the roster. There is injury risk because he's gotten hurt in spring training multiple times already during his career. So that's the risk. I do agree that he's going to be a trade candidate as well. Ultimately depends on what offers the Marlins get for him in order whether they think it's worth it or to keep him. And you can't totally rule out the possibility of converting him to a reliever in spring training. If everybody else is healthy, they still think he can contribute in some way. I think it's the odds are at this stage to get somebody that I feel is well more than a 50-50 shot at being on the roster. I think that's great value. So I'm going to go with Edward right there.
He is arbitration eligible too. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's a small pay bump for a guy that has like a 4.5 ERA and who missed almost half of the year due to injury. He'll make like 1.5 million next season. It's a rounding error. If the guy that you actually think is going to be has turned a corner, and maybe they don't believe he's turned a corner, and maybe they'll just get out of the Eddie business this offseason now that he's put together this string of success. There's risk here, but I like him better than the ones left on my board right here. Some guys that we didn't draft here. Let me pull up very quickly before we get into the bonus rounds the current roster of guys that are playing for the Marlins down the stretch here. No Christian Pache, no David Hensley, no Johnny Pereda, no Anthony Veneziano, no Michael Peterson, no Adam Oller, Darren McCacken, Xavier Curry, Anthony Bender. Nobody picked Bender. Interesting. Lake Bacher, Mike Bauman, Valente Beozo, Jose Devers, Griffin Conine.
Isaac, why'd you pick Devers, man? Come on.
I thought about it. He was on my tier 4 board.
Jeez, dude. The fact that he's even on the board is
snubbed. Personally, I think Bruhan snubbed.
Bruhan. Even I snubbed him just now. Well, he's on the IL at the moment, but he should be back before the end of the year. He's out of options as well. So just look at the contrast where about half of the guys on the current active roster we didn't draft to be on the opening day roster 6 months from now.
Crazy.
And honestly, some of these guys weren't even on my board, not even in consideration right here.
I was considering Darren McCacken at one point, guys. No. Hey, he struck out Shohei, so good for him.
Mm-hmm. We will head back to our draft board right here as we head into the bonus round of selections. This is where we're mandated to take somebody who's not in the Marlins organization right now that we think they're going to acquire, whether it's via free agency, via trade, or the Bendick Special, a waiver claim. Several of these guys came to the Marlins organization originally as waiver claims, and now they are part of the future, or at least the very near-term future for the team. So that should not be ruled out right here. I have the first pick of the bonus round, which gives me a choice between two guys. I narrowed it down to two pending free agents. I think it's being a little bit overlooked at this moment, just how little money the Marlins have committed for 2025 right now. This is never a team that is going to be competing for big free agents or long-term deals. At the same time, every team, it seems, even if they go all the way down to the wire, every team usually inks some sort of major league free agent right here. The Marlins are on track to spend a lot less on their roster right now than they did in 2024. There's going to be room for Bendix to take a flyer on somebody coming off a down year. I had it narrowed down to two guys. I'm going to go with the bolder one, the more expensive one. I'm going to have them buying low, 1 year pillow contract on Walker Buehler to come back.
Yeah.
They'll have their rotation right now. Buehler, as we're talking, a 5.5 ERA for the Dodgers this season. He's missed a lot of time. He had Tommy John 2 full years ago, and he has not gone back on track since at all. His velo has mostly come back, but it's been a mess at the same time, there is precedent for guys like this to bounce back the very next year. He is in his late 20s. I believe he'll be 29 when he enters free agency right here. I think of it a lot like Luis Severino, who really bombed in his walk year with the Yankees, ends up signing with the Mets for 1 year, $13 million. That would be on the high end, but if it's a 1 year deal, if it's no strings attached for either side, I think the Marlins would be interested in that. A guy that either is critical to them exceeding expectations or a guy that turns into a decent trade chip for them at the deadline. It's more likely going to be the latter. There's still value in that money that they have available, and they should not repeat the error of this past year and get too confident in their internal options. I think Buehler is a great bounce back candidate. Tweak a few things, get him just a little bit farther away from that second Tommy John. I think that'd be a nice flyer to take, and one that I think is realistic, just given how the team looks at pitching, evaluates pitching. He's fixable, and I think he'd be worth a shot as long as it's a reasonable 1 year deal that he's open to taking. So now we got Kevin right here. Same drill. This has to be a guy that's not in the organization. Low probability that we're going to get this right, but who do you have in mind?
Yeah, definitely low probability. I was looking at a couple guys. I think they still do need a shortstop nonetheless. Going into next year, I mean, definitely could go that route, kind of like what they tried to do with Tim Anderson last year. It could also go like you said, the Bendix special, just get some random reliever and sign no minor league deal. But I'm gonna go with the shortstop. Probably not gonna happen. But I'm gonna go with Amed Rosario. I mean, this was the other guy in the running when they were trying to get TA. Rosario started the season off very well with Tampa. Then got traded, I believe, to the Dodgers. Dodgers DFA'd him. He's now with the Reds, but the defense is all right. I mean, he's been hitting all right this season. At this point, you just hope he comes off a quote-unquote down year. He's just under the league average of OPS plus. So it's definitely a flyer to take. He's only making $1.5 million. I don't think he's going to make too much more than that going into free agency once again. And who knows? Maybe he plays well enough to where the Marlins could trade him over to another team and they can bring in a prospect package or at least one or two prospects out of that. Or who knows? Maybe it's a fluke and you do what you did with TA. You DFA him.
What gives me pause about that is how little he played shortstop even this season for the Rays and for the Dodgers. He started 11 total games this whole year at short. He played a lot more at seconds. Even he played more right field than he played shortstop this year. Now that's on the teams. Maybe the Marlins' evaluation of him is a little bit different than that. He'd certainly be cheaper than somebody like Buehler. He signed for less than $2 million this year. I imagine he'll be in the same range this offseason, if not even a minor league deal candidate. So yeah, I think that makes more sense. There's at least a little bit of smoke attached to that. As you mentioned, they were at some level of interest in him this past offseason as well. So why not? Isaac, your shot in the dark flyer that you're taking in the bonus round.
I'm excited about this one because I think there's honestly a genuine chance here. You're right, Eli. It would be smart for them to learn from their mistakes, but this is a team that saw all of their starting pitchers drop like dominoes and yet did nothing about it, and I don't see that changing. But what they did do was add a bunch of bullpen guys. And Peter Bendix is going to bring back Andrew Kittredge, and he's going to sign him to a 1, maybe 2 year deal. Tampa Bay guy, relief pitcher that actually had a really good year this year with St. Louis. And I think you could see him pitch pretty high leverage innings for a Marlins team. And then guess what? Flip him at the deadline.
I like him a lot. I think he's going to be, he's on the older side. He's going to be entering his age 35 season. He was great this year. I'll be fascinated to see what kind of deal he gets.
Think Ziegler, think Tazawa, think those types of signings.
Yeah.
I remember his days with the Rays. He was our closer at one point too, until I think he went with Tommy John, and then that's when they traded him.
Yeah, he was. I enjoyed watching him this year with the Cardinals. So we will. So Nate has the final pick right here. You get the drill. Somebody outside of the organization. We all went with pending free agents. Where are you going to go with this, Nate?
I can't believe you guys left me Juan Soto. I mean, are you just
say,
like, come on, you guys fell right into my lap. No, but in all seriousness, I'm going to follow Isaac. I think Bennett's going to go for a reliever, an old friend of his and also an old Marlin. I'm going to go with Matt Moore. Marlins don't have a lot of lefties.
I like that.
Matt
I like
Moore-
Matt Moore.
Matt Moore's
I
a new
love
free
Matt
agent.
Moore.
He was with the Marlins, of course, most remember with towards the end of last season. So he was there in Pittsburgh for the celebration. So he has a lot of good memories attached to Miami. So I think it makes a lot of sense. He's a lefty. They're not going to have a lot of lefties in the bullpen to start next season. So Matt Moore.
They should have brought him back, man. And then he decided to go back to the Angels, who let him go the first time that made him playoff ineligible.
The level of attachment that Marlins fans had to Matt Moore for pitching 4 games for them down the stretch was kind of surprising. There were like a few too many people saying they have to sign. Do they have to? I know he's a good pitcher, but there's a lot of these guys out there. A real step down for him with the Angels this year, so he would be affordable for sure. I mean, he signed for $9 million this year, but it's going to be a tiny fraction of that moving forward, assuming he continues his career. 35-year-old lefty who does have some history with the Marlins and was successful in that very tiny sample. To review, Nate, drafting from the pole position, took Jesús Sánchez, Sandy Alcantara, Braxton Garrett, Nick Fortes, Jesús Tinoco, and Matt Moore. Isaac Azout, his selections: Connor Norby, Declan Cronin, Jonah Bride, Kyle Stowers, Javier Sanoja, Andrew Kittredge. Kevin, Xavier Edwards, Ryan Weathers, Calvin Faucher, Dane Myers, Deyvison de los Santos, Amed Rosario, and myself, Jesús Luzardo, Jake Berger, Otto Lopez, Andrew Nardi, Edward Cabrera, and Walker Buehler right there. We'll give the people on YouTube a slightly better look at this entire group that we had. It's a 26-man real-life roster. We selected 24 of those. We'd need a backup catcher in there to join Nick Fortes. And then who else are we missing from this group? I think we selected 5 or 6 total starting pitchers in there. It's relatively representative of the way that an actual roster is constructed, even though that wasn't actually the goal here. The goal was selfishly to try to go as close to 100% with our individual teams as we possibly could right there. We'll post this for everybody to see. We'll have people vote on who we think had the best team right here. The payoff is still over 6 months away until the Marlins open next year at Lone Depot Park against the Pirates. Needless to say, it's going to be a much different looking team than the one that we're watching down the stretch heading into the final few games of the 2024 regular season with Kevin Barral, Nate Karzmer, Isaac Azout, Eli Sussman here on the official show. Hope you enjoyed this draft, and we'll have more of these type of ideas throughout the offseason heading into 2025 for your enjoyment as well. Subscribe to the pod wherever you get your podcast, whether it is on YouTube or Apple Podcasts, Spotify, however you choose to ingest our offerings. We have a whole lot coming covering this team, entering what is going to be, as always, I think you always say that it's a crucial offseason, but in this case, there's a lot of different things that they could do. Peter Bendix's first full winter at the wheel. No doubt he's going to do some things that make us look very stupid, but we put our takes out there anyway, just in case, for your entertainment purposes. Thanks for listening to the show, supporting what we do at Fish on First. As always, go fish.